The search teams tracked her footprints 3/4 of a mile into a Montana plain, soft ground, damp from recent weather, holding every impression cleanly. No road within reach, no drainage feature, no visible obstacle in any direction. And then the print stopped. There had been a car crash. She had walked away from it, climbed a fence at the edge of the highway, and disappeared into the dark. That much made a kind of terrible sense. What happened to those tracks does not. The medical examiner never got to write a ruling. There was no body. There has never been a body. Patricia Meehan remains classified as endangered missing. Patricia Bernadette Meehan, known to those close to her as Patty, was born November 1st, 1951, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. By the spring of 1989, she was 37 years old, working as a ranch hand in Bozeman, Montana. 5'3", green eyes, strawberry blonde hair, a soft, whispery voice. Her family described as distinctive. She had grown up in Pittsburgh, studied early childhood development at a college in Oklahoma City, then changed direction entirely. In 1985, she moved to Montana, drawn by a love of animals and open land. Those who knew her described her as capable, self-reliant, someone who had found the life she was looking for. By April of that year, something had shifted. Her landlord described her as seeming hyper in the days before she disappeared. Her mother, Dolly, later said publicly, "She was, I guess, taking in her own life. What had she accomplished? I think she missed having children because I think she realized she really loved them." And she had been given a deadline. She had made an appointment with a psychologist for the morning of April the 21st. On the evening of April the 19th, she called her father and told him she was under stress and wanted to come home. He told her she could, on one condition: keep that appointment first. The following morning, she told her landlord she was going away for a few days. She got into her Chevrolet Nova and drove east on Highway 200. She did not say where she was going. She did not keep the appointment. Circle, Montana, Macomb County, nearly 400 miles from Bozeman by road, a town of around 600 people, surrounded by wheat fields and open ranch land. Patricia had no documented connections to the area. No family, no employer, no known reason to be on that specific road, heading east, at that hour. At approximately 8:15 on the evening of April the 20th, her eastbound Nova crossed the center line on Highway 200. Peggy Bueller, traveling west with her father, swerved to avoid the oncoming car. The vehicle struck the car behind her, driven by Carol Heights, an off-duty police dispatcher. Both walked away from the wreck. What happened in the minutes that followed has never been explained. Carol Heights emerged from the wreckage and watched Patricia climb out of the other vehicle. Patricia walked directly toward her. Heights later said Patricia looked right through her, as though she were not there. She just stared. She never said anything. She just stared at me. I will never forget her. From the shoulder of the road, Peggy Bueller watched Patricia walk away from the crash site, cross to the fence at the edge of the highway, climb over it, and stand on the far side. Bueller described her as looking back at the scene, like a curious bystander, as if whatever had just happened had not happened to her. After a couple of minutes, she turned and walked farther into the field. Bueller drove into town to find a phone and call police. Her father stayed at the scene with Heights. A concussion. A collision at highway speed can produce exactly this: the blank expression, the silence, the inability to process what is happening around you. It explains why Patricia may not have understood what she had just walked away from. What it does not explain is what came next. A person in a severe concussive state can drift, can move without intention or direction, but Patricia crossed a fence, then continued into open ground, in a measured line, through darkness and cold. Whatever was driving her, it was directional. After standing on the far side for several moments, watching the scene she had just left, Patricia turned and walked into the Montana plain. When officers arrived and ran the Nova's plates, Patricia's identity was established within 30 minutes. She was already gone. The night temperature was near freezing. The terrain beyond the fence was flat, open ranch land. Wheat fields and prairie, no structures, no tree cover, no natural shelter within immediate walking distance. She was wearing jeans, a brown coat, and white high-top tennis shoes with a blue stripe. She kept walking. Macomb County Sheriff's deputies arrived shortly after Bueller's call. Tracking dogs were deployed that night. An aerial search launched the following morning. 2 separate pilots conducted multiple flyovers, increasing the search radius each time. Local volunteers on horseback and ATV joined over the days that followed. The Meehan family funded a private helicopter. Investigators swept abandoned coal mines in the surrounding area. Eastern Montana's terrain should have worked in the searchers' favor. No hills, no dense vegetation, no immediate water feature adjacent to where Patricia had crossed the fence. A person moving on foot across that landscape in the dark should have been findable. At approximately 3 in the morning, the trail ended. At a point approximately 3/4 of a mile from the crash site. No sign of a fall, no change of direction, no evidence of struggle. The impressions simply stopped in ground that had been holding every step cleanly. For 3/4 of a mile. The search continued over the following days. Nothing further was found. The conditions that night were as close to ideal as investigators could hope for. Soft soil, damp from recent weather, a walking pace, confirmed by the stride length, clear enough to follow for 3/4 of a mile, and then nothing. One possibility is a vehicle, a surface that holds no impression. A packed dirt track, a farm road, would end a trail exactly this way. A hay truck had been parked approximately half a mile from the crash site at the time of the collision. Whether it was still there when Patricia reached that area was never established. Eastern Montana's apparent flatness conceals things too. Shallow depressions, drainage cuts, sections that read as level from the air that aren't. A person who went down in the dark might not be found if the search passed the wrong side of the wrong contour. And then there is the simplest explanation: near freezing temperatures, tennis shoes, a likely head injury. Under those conditions, deterioration can happen quickly. The window for a successful search may have closed before dawn, but exposure usually leaves something behind. The searchers found nothing, no clothing, no remains, no confirmed final location. One detail is harder to set aside than any of the others: the stride length. The impressions showed a steady walking pace. Consistent, measured, not erratic, not collapsing. Whatever state Patricia was in when she crossed that fence, she was moving with purpose through the dark. On May the 4th, 2 weeks after the crash, a police officer in Luverne, Minnesota, observed a woman matching Patricia's description, sitting alone inside a Hardee's restaurant, drinking water for over 5 hours, until the establishment closed. When the officer approached, the woman refused to give her name. She said she was from Colorado. Then she said she was from Israel. Then she walked to a nearby 24-hour diner. The following day, additional sightings were reported in South Dakota, including Sioux Falls, where a waitress said a woman matching Patricia's description sat drinking coffee from midnight until late morning. On May the 19th, a woman who appeared disoriented, talking to herself, ordered breakfast quickly near Patricia's own apartment in Bozeman. Before saying she had to go shopping at 9, she was a few miles from her own front door. And then the case got stranger. On May the 30th, a truck driver reported seeing a woman matching Patricia's description, walking along Interstate 90 in rural Washington state. He slowed, offered her a ride. She declined. Then she walked to a female motorist who had stopped nearby and told her that her car had broken down and she was looking for a phone. No broken down car was found in the area. Law enforcement also noted 2 connections in Washington state: Patricia's sister in Seattle and a former boyfriend, Kurt Fletcher, in Spokane. On November the 1st, 1989, NBC broadcast Patricia's case on Unsolved Mysteries. November the 1st was her birthday. She would have turned 38 that day. The broadcast generated more than 5,000 reported sightings. None has ever been confirmed by law enforcement as an identification. The amnesia theory holds that the crash produced a dissociative episode, Patricia conscious and mobile, but without access to her identity, her name, her prior life. It accounts for the blank stare, for the fence, for some of the sightings. It does not account for Washington state, declining a ride, and then inventing a cover story moments later, is not confusion. It is evasion. The voluntary disappearance theory is more difficult to dismiss. Patricia was under sustained pressure, driving east with no stated destination, away from an appointment that was the condition of going home. A former boyfriend, Kurt Fletcher, was living in Spokane at the time. The trajectory of the sightings, east through Montana, then northwest toward Washington, is consistent with that direction. This has never been confirmed as her destination, and it explains nothing about the footprints. No theory closes all the gaps. Each one requires something to be ignored. Patricia Meehan is listed with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The case is active. She would be 74 years old today. After Patricia disappeared, her family found a camera among her belongings. Inside it was a roll of undeveloped film. When it was processed, there was one photograph on the roll, a self-portrait. Patricia had taken it herself, sometime before she got into the Nova and drove east. Nobody knows when she took it, or why. It is the last confirmed image of her before the night of April the 20th, 1989, and it explains nothing. Tom and Dolly Meehan drove across the country following leads. They sat in diners and studied strangers' faces. They watched their daughter's case on national television on her birthday. They followed every credible lead for years. Both of them died without an answer. This is Obscura Case, where every mystery deserves to be remembered.